Hello, everyone. Dave here from Constant Contact, and thanks for joining me here for our webinar After Hours, the After Hours from our session, Making Sense of Online Marketing. That session, in case you didn't catch it, we know as a small business owner, it can often feel scary and confusing with all these kind of moving parts that you have to, you figure out what to do, how to do it. And it really presents a unique challenge for you as a small business owner, right? Who's typically pretty time starved in terms of that stuff. But realistically, once we feel anyway, once you kind of have a great understanding or better understanding of how all the pieces kind of come together and what needs to work with what, making sense of that and online marketing as a whole, to really actually benefit your business so you can stop wasting time doing things that aren't really beneficial to you, you can actually feel a lot better and start getting those results that you've really hoped for. So whether you're just getting started or you've been doing it for a while and not seeing those results you'd hope for, this is really the session for you. In that session, we covered how people find you online, how to set yourself up for success, and then how to encourage new and repeat business with online marketing. So we'll include in the description of this video, once this is published, we'll include some information there for you so you can go check out that recording. If you're wondering if it's going to be worth your time, we did get some great feedback from folks that were on the line. I believe we had over close to 6,000 people registered for the event, which was awesome. And just a couple of quotes here from people who attended. Very well organized, a good foundation of knowledge if someone hasn't already gone through marketing training. Great to hear that. Wonderful advice. There are lots of things I didn't think of, but I'm glad I saw this because it will help me a lot. So also awesome. And excellent webinar. Simple, easy to understand, and to the point. So if you're looking for something that's going to give you some value, so you can spend, you're going to be spending 40 to 50 minutes of some quality time there, definitely go check it out. The link will be in the description. So as you might imagine, having only about an hour to kind of go through all of this, online marketing is a big topic, and we do a really good job, I think, of really outlining those foundational things that you need to do and think about. But of course, being such a big topic, there's lots of questions that kind of come and stem from that. So we answered as many as we possibly could on the potential or at the time we were scheduled to do that. But as I mentioned, we don't get a time to do all of them. So we're going to answer some of those questions here today. So the first question I'm going to answer here came from Joanna, and she had asked, how do you claim your name on all channels? So one of the things we mentioned during the session is the importance of claiming your business, right? And this is in a couple of ways. We mean it from a social standpoint, meaning, and really what we should say is, register your name or get your name that's for your particular business on your social channel. So when you're thinking of, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things, you want to basically reserve your name, the name of your business, regardless of whether or not you're going to actually use that channel to start, just so you have that, right? So nobody else can kind of steal that name, and then it causes confusion with people looking for your business and all of that. The other thing to think about is when we're thinking about things like Facebook pages, listings like Yelp pages, for example, or Google My Business pages, that's where we're talking about actually claiming a page. And those are all kind of listing sites that can get created by somebody talking about your business, or someone going to write a review. Some of those are kind of auto-generated. And so there's a couple of things, right? On the social side, that means just opening an account and creating an account with your name as your username, all right, your business name. And then there's actually going to things that already exist, like a listing, like I mentioned, the Google My Business, Yelp, or things like that, or a Facebook page potentially. And usually when you go to those, if they exist already, there's typically some type of button on the page somewhere that says, do you own this business? Claim it, right? And if you just click that link, you can actually go in and they'll follow whatever that process is that will tell you how to claim that page. And once they verify that you're actually the owner of that business, you'll then have control of that listing and that page, and you'll be able to make updates And depending on the particular notebook, you'll be able to reply to reviews, you'll be able to post updates, that type of thing, add pictures, all of that. And so that's really important to do because, again, as people are online searching for businesses and people they want to do business with, they're going to be looking and hoping and trying to see that information is the same across and up to date across all of the different sites, because you never really know where somebody's going to get in there. And the more you can show that you're engaging and listening to what people are doing and talking to your business, and answering those questions for people and presenting yourself as a valuable resource for potential customers, that may push people over the edge as they're looking at you and potential competitors for what they're looking for. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about claiming your name on all channels, right? Social and listing sites. Okay. So Joanna, thank you so much for that question. So here's another one from Nikki. And Nikki said, speaking of social media posts, should posts be more formal or professional, or should I post something a little more personal? So that's a really interesting question, right? Because I think when we talk about social media, sometimes there's this misperception, because obviously, yes, we want it to be social, but that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be personal. What it means is you should show some personality, and engage with people, right? It's not just about kind of pushing out things that are like, look at me, or posting ads or saying buy my stuff, right? But it's about engaging with the people that could be your customers, your community of customers, so to speak, right? And so really what you need to decide for yourself is, like, you don't need to get personal in the sense of, airing out your dirty laundry or something like that. But people do business with people that they know, like, and trust, right? And so if you're doing things that are authentic to your business and make you look human, that's a good thing. But you have to discuss with yourself, right? Get a plan in place so that you're not sharing things that would, one, you'd be uncomfortable sharing. You don't need to do that. You don't need to get personal, as much as you're just trying to share some personality. So that's how I would think about it there, right? And typically when we talk about social, like, we've talked about these, having these goals, right? And understanding what it is you're posting, and not just posting for the sake of posting. And so there may be times when you're posting to just, build awareness for your business. There's times you're posting in terms of some type of customer service magnitude. And then there's another time when you're posting to just actually drive some action and engagement, or something specific that you want people to do. And so when you think about it that way, then you start to figure out what are the best things for your business in that sense, and how you want to be publishing your updates there. So it's a combination of things, but it's really being professional, but being human, and really engaging with people, and not just trying to push things out and speak to people as in terms of telling them stuff, right? You want to be it's a way to have a conversation with people. So here's a question from Jeff. And Jeff asked, how effective are links on my site and backlinks from other sites to drive people to my site? So I'm going to grab a drink of water here, and then I'm going to answer that question. So great question, right? So links, when you think about it, are a lot like currency for your website. Because when somebody links to you, or when somebody is sharing a link to your site, that means that somebody finds it valuable. And so Google will take that stuff into consideration when they're ranking pages on the search engine rankings pages, right? Or results page. So all of those things will help, because it also helps show that that page is relative to the thing that somebody is searching for. So for example, right, if somebody's searching for, let's just say, searching for tips for email marketing, for example, right? If you've got a lot of content on your site about email marketing and has tips about email marketing, you are going to start to show that authority, right? And then if more people are linking to your site saying, like, hey, this site is about this thing, and I think it's valuable enough to link to it as a resource, then Google is going to say, like, hey, this must be a really relative thing that I want to show to somebody else looking for it, right? And then internally, when you're linking within your own site, you're again starting to show what your they call it kind of domain authority, right? You're starting to show what your website is about to Google, and letting them know all of the different ways that they can all of the different ways that they can show your site to people looking for the things that you're talking about, right? So yes, all of those links are very effective. The other thing that I should mention, though, is that it's not just about random links, right? Because you'll run into a lot of people trying to kind of like, hey, I can get you links, or asking for backlinks to things. And really what you want to have is quality links from people linking back to your site, right? So there's a big difference between some site that's just, got a bunch of garbage on it and is linking to you versus a very well reputable site that is linking to you. And that, if you can get links from reputable sites, like, you're going to get a lot of benefit from that. I mean, I remember back in the day, I got linked to on my personal site from Copyblogger. Actually, was one of the sites that linked to me, and that drove tons of traffic at the time because they have tons of authority, right? And so when they're pointing you to places like, and they have a very engaged audience, like, that's going to drive a lot of traffic and help your site overall. And so really, it's about finding the quality places that will allow you to do that. That's why a lot of times people will do guest posting. So if you're writing content and you're providing it to other sites, if that site is non-competitive to you and has the audience that you're trying to reach, and will, when you're writing for free and you're providing a link back to your site for a particular resource, it's hugely valuable in terms of helping your site be more powerful and have more authority. So yes, that's very, very good stuff to think about. Great question, Jeff. Thank you. So here's a question from Casey. So what is the right rate of engagement? How often? So there's a couple of ways we can think about this, right? Like, we can think about it from a social media sense, and then we can also think of it, I think, from an email marketing sense. And so the question here, and this is actually a great question because we get it a lot, and I think there might be something here about just like the number of emails. So I'll just talk about it. Yeah, I'll talk about it in the sense of I'll talk about it in the sense of social media because we have a question coming up a little later about it, particular to email. But the rate of engagement depends on a couple of factors, right? One factor is it's going to depend on your audience, right? So who are the people that you're trying to reach? Who are the people that you're trying to connect with? And what is that relationship? And what are the types of people that they are, right? And then the other is what is the site that you're talking about, right? Because we talk about this idea that each social channel really has its own personality, right? Although they're all social channels, they each work a little bit differently. They have different purposes for existing, and they each kind of have a different personality. So when you think of like Facebook, right? Like, you're typically in the news feed, you'd be competing with things such as friends and family and maybe some news, right? And you look at that, it's kind of a slower moving platform. It's based on an algorithm. It's showing you things versus, let's say, a Twitter, which also has some algorithm things in there, but is really more of a high speed, like current events, what's happening now type of news channel, right? And so that's the type of channel where you could actually engage and publish more to, right? Versus Facebook, where you may only need to do one post a day, potentially, but you could also do a lot more things in terms of responding to comments and engaging that way. So when you're thinking about like how often should you post and that type of thing, the answer is it really depends on the channel and what is right for that particular channel, as well as what is right for you in the sense of what you can actually do. So think about the audience, think about the channel, and think about what is realistic for what you can accomplish as your business when you're thinking about what is the right level of engagement on that. So Cassandra asks, out of all the social media platforms, which do you recommend being as the most effective in bringing in traffic? Ooh, so also another great question, and I think also another one that actually is a depends kind of answer, right? Because it depends on the audience that you're trying to reach and where that audience is and how engaged that audience is. So if you are let's say, Twitter is, let's say you run a lot of events, right? Let's say you're doing lots of kind of news related things and current events and then those types of things where being active and, being in the thick of what's happening right now is really important to your business. Well, being on Twitter and having an audience that is active on Twitter, like that may be a very valuable place for you to be in terms of bringing in traffic to your site, not only through the engagement that you're having in the site, because I think that's a big thing to keep in mind too, right? It's not just about posting links. It's actually about being on the site and engaging with the people there, and those relationships that you start to build and those interactions people have with you. Again, depending on the nature of your business, right? It may not be appropriate for everyone, but those relationships also do a lot towards and that engagement does a lot to driving more traffic to your site, simply because more people will, the more people and the stronger those ties are, the more likely they are to share and engage and click through and want to consume the information that you're sharing. Let's look here at a couple of other questions. So Marcia asks, do you pay for a Google My Business listing? So no. So a Google My Business listing is something that's offered by Google for free. And like I mentioned earlier, all you need to do is claim those pages if it's your business. So you prove it's your business, and then you'll be able to update those listings. And it's important because Google is obviously giving priority to those services that are theirs in the search results, right? You'll often see a Google My Business listing on the right-hand side of the page when you search for something or a business in particular. And you have to make sure that information is correct, right? Because a lot of times people will make decisions based off of that personal story. My wife and I were looking for some place to eat. We were searching for something and some information came up. And I'm like, oh, let's go to this place. It looks really great. Looked like it was open. We got there, the place was closed, right? So we kind of drove 20 minutes out of our way, got there, we were upset. It's really unlikely that we're going to go back to this place, right? But that's why it's really important that those listings are up to date. So something to think about too is like a lot of times you'll get people contacting you claiming to be from Yelp, claiming to be from Google, claiming to be from Facebook. Facebook, Google, and Yelp are not going to be contacting you via the phone saying they can help you get your listings up higher and doing things like that, right? So you can typically expect that those are some type of scam messages trying to get you on the line to sell you something that is not actually related to the services that they claim to be. So really what you want to do is just make sure you're getting those things claimed for yourself and using them. But no, you do not have to pay for a Google My Business listing. So Monica asks, so my business name is different from my website URL. When I search my URL on Google, my site shows up, but when I do a search within the business with the business name I use, it doesn't show up. Should I start going with my URL name? My URL is also the same on Facebook, or should I use my URL for my Instagram name as well? So this is a great question. And I think really the answer has to do a lot with being consistent for your customer, right? So what you really need to think about is, well, how are people going to really know your name? Because there are definitely logical reasons for having a particular URL because it may be based on things that people are searching for, right? So like, I'm going to make something up, right? But think of like, best marketing tips, right? Like, let's say your site is called Best Marketing Tips, right? So that's kind of the site name, right? And that makes sense for the URL to also be Best Marketing Tips. But if you're a business, so let's say Constant Contact, for example, right? Like Constant Contact, like you want your Facebook page to also be Constant Contact. You want your Twitter handle to also be Constant Contact. And although we sell online marketing tools and email marketing tools and things like that, like we don't necessarily, our URL isn't email marketing tools, right? So you really need to think about being consistent, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have confusion caused when people go kind of searching for you and looking for you, because if your business is called one thing and then your Facebook page is something else, or this is that, and then you've got your fragments of your business kind of around, that can get confusing to people, and then people aren't thinking about your business as much as you are, and it shouldn't really be that difficult for people to figure out if this is the same place or not. So it's a good idea to, at least whatever you do, you make sure that you're being consistent, and so it feels like it's the same across, right? That's one of the reasons why we recommend you get your business name and claim them or reserve them or open accounts with that username, so you can start to be consistent. So that's what I would think about there. Let's see. Darcy asks how to answer someone on the review page. Would I just click write a review button to answer? So no, actually, if you've claimed your, so let's use Yelp as an example. If you've claimed that Yelp listing as a business that you own, you'll be able to just go in there and actually reply as the business owner to those reviews that people leave, which is something that we do recommend that you do, right? It makes sense to, as if someone were in your store with you face to face or at your restaurant, whatever the case may be, and they were saying, hey, this service or this product or this food was delicious, right? You'd say, thank you so much. We appreciate that. We're glad you like it, right? Same type of thing. You want to do that online as well, because again, when people come in and they're looking and they're making decisions on whether or not they're going to come to your store, do business with you, eat at your restaurant, whatever the case may be, when they do that, they're looking to see, how do you respond to people, right? What are people saying? But also, like, they're getting a sense for what it's like to be in your space, right? Like working with you or eating with you or whatever the case may be. So it's a good idea to just, let them start to see what that would be like, see how you're responding. Similarly, there's a question here, how do you respond to a negative review? And also important is to show how you handle criticism, right? A lot of times people get upset and freak out a little bit about this idea of negative reviews. But in actuality, if you go in and you're responding to those reviews in a level-headed way, sometimes that's what people are actually looking to see. How do you respond to that feedback somebody is leaving you, right? Do you freak out and blame the customer? Or do you actually take responsibility for what somebody is saying, if it's valid information, and saying, like, what can we do to rectify this, right? Because that also gives people a sense of what it would be like to work with you, right? Just as you might have problem clients sometimes, and nobody wants to have those, people also don't want to have problem businesses that they work with, right? They want to make sure that the things that they're getting are going to be, one, work for them, but also know that if they have a problem, there's going to be somebody there to listen and be able to help them work through whatever that problem is. And so this is just a way for you to kind of start to show how you respond and how you handle those things. And every once in a while, you may get a crazy person, right? And I think the key to understand is that people going and looking and checking these things out can understand the crazy, right? Particularly when it's not a lot of people doing that too. It might be like one person here or there. If you're doing that, and they're seeing that, and they see you tried to do what you tried to do to resolve it, that's more important than the crazy person kind of making an offhand kind of comment, right? So embrace people leaving that feedback and doing those things for you, because this is an opportunity to show people what type of business you are. Okay, so that stuff can be good for you. We're at about 22 minutes. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna try to answer all of these questions. So hopefully we'll get done within a half an hour here. But I think these are all important questions, so I want to get them. So Nadia asks, this all seems like a lot of work. How much time will this take me? I'm normally busy running my business. I'm sure everybody watching now or listening to this is also saying yes. Thank you, Nadia, for asking that question. So it's a great question, right? And I think what it really boils down to is a couple of things, right? Being very clear on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? And then figuring out and putting a plan in place to help you accomplish those things, okay? So many times we see people get started with social media because people are saying, oh, they say I got to be on social, so I'm going to go down all these channels, I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to do a little bit here, I'm going to do a little bit there, I'm going to do a little bit there. But there's no real plan behind what you're doing. And when that happens, you end up in this situation where you're kind of doing a little bit here, a little bit there, and it gets very time consuming, right? Because then you get seduced by all of these kind of little things that, oh, somebody liked this or somebody did that, or the activity becomes more of the thing than the actual result of the activity, right? And so realistically, it becomes about thinking about, one, what are your goals? Putting in a plan in place in order to use the appropriate tools to do that, and then execute against that plan. And then putting a process in place so that you're making it part of your routine, right? As with anything else, if you're not focused, you're not planning on it, you're not going to do it. And being clear on what it is that you're accomplishing, because if you do that, then you can actually put in a plan in place and say, okay, I'm going to spend, maybe it's having some dedicated time each day, 15 minutes a day to do these activities, XYZ. Or now I have my plan in place. I know I need to produce this particular thing. I'm going to spend half hour a day doing that particular thing so I get this ready for when I need to do this particular campaign that I'm running, right? So it's really, really about that. I think if you can think about what you're trying to do, have some goals, and then actually put a plan in place. When you do that, then it's like, you got your plan, you work the plan. And then you break that up into manageable tasks for yourself. Because we know you're busy running your business, right? And we try to provide a lot of step-by-step stuff for you. And so particular to a channel based on the reality of like, you're running a business. So how do you actually do this stuff? And so, a lot of times you kind of do that by getting clear about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Sherman Lisa asked, is it unlawful to use your existing email contact list to send out your first introductory campaign? So great question. Is it unlawful? It depends on where you are, because there are different laws in different countries. UK, for example, falls under GDPR. The US falls under the Can Spam Act. Canada falls under CASL. And the most strict of all of those is in the UK. And you're really not supposed to email anybody without their explicit permission. And there are things like implied permission, where if somebody is a customer with you, you can actually, you can contact them as a follow-up. What we recommend people do is email marketing is always going to work best. I know it's tempting to be like, I've got a whole bunch of people and I'm just going to send them something. Really what you should be doing is getting people that are opted in, right? Saying, yes, specifically, I want you to send me marketing messages about your business. And some ways you could potentially do that is, let's say you're at events and people are giving you business cards, right? It's typically not a good idea just to add those people to your email list and start sending them things, right? That's not why they gave you a business card. But it is completely appropriate to get on and say, hey, it was great meeting you at this event. You send them a personal email and let them know that, hey, I have this great newsletter or emails that I send out about this particular topic that thanks, John, I appreciate that. About this particular thing we were discussing, if you want to, you can sign up here, right? And so when you do that, I was talking to somebody the other day, actually, we were over in Atlanta, and we was talking to a business who was, I have a bunch of contacts. I haven't done anything with them in a while. What should I do? And made kind of the same recommendation, send them a personal email. So like, hey, thank you for being a customer. Wanted to let you know I'm setting up this thing. And I'm going to be sending, let them know the expectations, the value that they're going to get from receiving those emails from you. And then give them the option to sign up and give you explicit permission in order to contact them. Those people that do that are going to be, it's higher quality people from you, because these are people that want to hear from you. And however tempting it may feel to like just want to send something to everybody, just think about this in your everyday life, right? You get all these emails from salespeople or people just kind of cold emailing you. It's kind of a pain in the ass, right? Right. And it kind of sets you up in this like thing. Some of them can be creative and some of them may get your attention, but the reality is if you hadn't gone looking for it, right, you're typically not going to be as engaged with that business, right? So those people that say yes and want to hear from you are always going to be much better. So that's how I would think about that. So Sandra says, I have a real question that no one seems to want to discuss, but that is the issue of email fatigue. Almost everyone, company, business, and sole proprietor uses email services to stay in contact with their customers. But many people say that they can't keep up with email. They're swamped with communication. Even with making efforts to keep your content fresh and relevant, how can the email marketing industry stave off email overload? Great question. And we're going to discuss it because you've asked it, right? So it's a great question, and it's something to think about, which is why we talk a lot about these days. We talk about the idea of segmentation and automation. Let me explain what I mean by that. Today, people want information that feels very timely and relevant to them. And when you're thinking about that, it's often on their schedule and not yours necessarily, right? As the business owner. And so whatever you can do to put them in control of the timeliness and the relevance of that information, the better you're going to be in terms of breaking through the noise. Also, consider that people do want things at different times, right? So that when somebody is interested or is looking for something that your business is often offering because they have a particular problem that they may be dealing with, they're going to be highly engaged with that, right? Like, there's definitely this blanket statement of I'm overwhelmed and I'm not paying attention with that. But when you are paying attention, right, you want that information. And so it's dealing with those kind of ebbs and flows of the types of things that people want. I mean, there's that, like, right, when you're ever buying a car, when you're out and you're trying to figure out like what type of car that you're going to buy. And all of a sudden you start noticing, like if you're looking at a particular brand, right, you start seeing that brand everywhere because your mind has opened up to focusing in on that. And it's the same thing with the information your business may offer, right? If your mind is open to that, then you're going to want more of that information and you start to filter out the other things because that's what you're trying to get to. So the timeliness and the relevancy, right? So a lot of times we recommend where if you're doing things based on getting an audience to kind of raise their hand, just as they raise their hand to say, I want you to contact me. If there's a particular thing that you want to talk about or a particular product or service, you can use things like click segmentation, for example. An example we give all the time is, Southside Cycling. They have a cycling club. So they send out an email to their full list and say, hey, would you like to learn more about this cycling club that we have, blah, blah, blah. Click this link and we'll send you some more information. So now what you've done is you've sent an email out. People that are interested in a cycling club will click through and out of curiosity, right? They'll open up that email. And then if they want to get more information from you, they're going to click the link, and then you can have automation set up on the back end that then you're sending timely and relevant information to them because you let them kind of have control of that discussion or the amount of emails they're going to get based on that. And so when you start thinking about things like that, and really being in tune with your customers, right? Really being open to what they're struggling with and what they're talking about and what they want to talk about. And if you can have discussions around those things, you're going to find that your emails actually break through that noise because it's relating to them more than just talking about the thing you want to talk about. That may not be the thing that they want to talk about, right? Ultimately, you want to get them to where you need them to go, but you do that through understanding their wants and needs, if that makes sense. So that's one of the ways that, definitely a huge problem. And that's kind of how you start to break through that noise, by sending more targeted information to specific groups of people and kind of giving them some control over that. So James asks, how often should emails be sent out to customers and prospects? So I mentioned this was a answer I was going to come back to here because we were talking about social media in terms of frequency here. So here's another depends. And it depends on expectations that are set by you. So let me throw this question back to somebody else asking this because also a question that we get all the time, right? So first I'll give you a general rule of thumb. If you're just going to send like a newsletter, that's like a normal thing, you want to do that at least once a month, right? That is about enough time where someone receives information from you that you keep your business top of mind enough where they don't forget that they're registered to your thing, and then they get an email and they go, what is this? And they think you're spam or something like that. But it's enough to kind of keep your business active in their minds, right? The better thing to think about is the expectations that are set. So let me throw a question back to you. If you were on a site and I don't know, let's say it was like, let's say it was a marketing site. You're really into marketing right now, right? You're really trying to figure out what you can do for your business. And the marketing site was said, hey, sign up for this, my daily marketing tip newsletter. So if you signed up for that, what is the expectation, right? Daily marketing tip. So you're expecting to get an email daily from this company. If you don't get that email daily, well, what happens? What does that mean? That means, right, one, you're not meeting the expectation, but two, you're not sending enough, right? Because they're expecting to get an email daily. If you say, I'm going to send you 1 to 2 emails a month, well, then how many emails should they be expecting they get from you? 1 or 2, right? Similarly, I mentioned that idea of using kind of like click segmentation and automation together. If you're sending your regularly scheduled email and that says, hey, to get more information about this particular thing, and they click on it, well, now that they're expecting an increase in the number of emails that you're sending them, right? Because they're specifically asking for it. So that's why it's one of those depends situations, and it depends on the expectations that you're setting with people. So there's no right or wrong answer here other than don't do something that is completely the opposite of what you've promised. But it's going to depend on the nature of your business, what it is that you're offering, and what's the best way to deliver that information. And then also the audience that you're speaking to. Like all of those things kind of work together to help you figure out, what the right frequency is to do those things. So that's what I would think about there. Bruno asks, can you suggest ways to create content? So, and then we've got 2 questions after that, and I think that'll close us up here for today. So a great way to think about creating content, right? So couple things come into play, right? Like who's going to be creating that content for you? Is it you as the business owner? Is it somebody on your team? Are there multiple people? I think they're all fine, but I think it's identifying what are the strengths or what are the different ways based on the personality of your business or the business owners, whatever the case may be. What are the ways most people feel most comfortable creating? Okay. And so right here, right now, right, I'm collecting some questions from people and I'm using a video, right? So I'm spending 35 minutes as of right now. So let's say I'm going to spend 40 minutes creating and answering questions, right? So I'm creating content and I'm doing it in a way that is allowing me to spend 40 minutes to do that. Done, right? A lot of times you may get questions or a customer may email you and maybe you end up spending some time typing out a response, right? Well, what if you thought about typing a very thorough response, giving them some really great information? You're going to not only wow that person asking that question, but in your answer, because it was so thought out and valuable to them, right? You're going to wow them, but then you can cut and paste that answer because it's most likely that other people have the same type of questions, right? What if you then took that, played around with the formatting a little bit, but then turn that into a blog post or turn that into something else, right? So what you're really, I guess what I'm getting at is really think of ways that you can add content creation to your business as usual and look for ways to do double duty with content you're creating. I mean, I can't tell you how many things that we see, at Constant Contact as a bigger business with lots of people doing things that is work that is done internally that really could be used externally because it offers some great insight or great advice that, that just is getting kind of squandered because it's just being used as an internal resource, right? So it's really about, again, adding it to your processes and thinking about how you can do some double duty with some of the work that you're already doing to turn that into really great content. So that's what I would think about there. So Deborah asks, she says, we're a moving company. People are only going to come back to us every 5 years. Any thoughts on interaction with them? That's a great question, right? A lot of times it can feel as if, if you have this kind of long cycle of customers, right? So you want to think about a couple of things, right? In a situation like that, like clearly you want to think about referrals, right? So how do you stay top of mind enough to provide information that will provide, recall of your business when people are or friends of the people that are your customers who have had a great experience with you will think of you and refer you when other people are looking to use your service as a moving company. And so some of the ways that you can think about interaction with people are, creating content kind of around all it means to move, right? So that could mean answering questions that people may have, as they're thinking about moving, ways to pack, creating videos that show techniques on, safely packing items from your kitchen, right? I'm making stuff up here, but when you really think about that process that people go through when it comes to moving and you're providing insight into the different things that would help them successfully move, those are the types of things that people are going to, one, look for, consume, and share online with other people, right? So I'd start thinking about beyond just the immediate service that you offer, also ways to help them get to the point where they need your service, right? And so that's thinking about that idea. It may also be interesting ways to look, I'm going to be frank, I don't think anybody enjoys moving, right? It's one of my least favorite things to do. the outcome of a move can be fantastic, and I may be excited about getting to where I'm going, but the act of having to pack and go through all my stuff is not the best thing in terms of like what I'm excited to do, right? And so there could be something there to that element, right? Like, having people share or discuss, their worst move or, something like that. So start to pay attention to the things that you hear from customers, and then look for some creative ways that you can start discussions around those things. And that can be great ways to kind of encourage interactions, right? You could even share like, what were your worst horror stories? Like people will love to tell stories like that, and maybe turn that into a contest or something. But those are all ways to kind of get the word out. And start to spread the word about your business, particularly when you've got customers that may only need you every 5 years. So, all right, our last question here is from Valentina, and she asks, how do we set up paid ads for Facebook and Instagram through you? So one of the things we mentioned on the Making Sense of Online Marketing, briefly anyway, was this idea of beyond the organic things and the foundational elements you want to have in place, you also want to consider using paid tactics such as advertising through Facebook and Instagram, Google Ads, that whole thing. So yes, within Constant Contact, you can actually you can create those ads. You can create Facebook lead ads. You can create ads on Facebook and Instagram right within your Constant Contact account. If you go to sometimes it could be the integrations tab, there's a Facebook ads information there. You can connect your Facebook account there, get your ad account connected. And also if you hit the create button, there should be an option in there for ads someplace there. And so through either of those, you can go in, you can set up your ad, the payment still takes place, and it's completely free to do within Constant Contact. You just need to pay for the ad as you normally would, but you do it through your Constant Contact account. It goes through whatever you have connected as a payment method with Facebook. And so that gets charged there, so you pay for that. But the actual creation, it's a little simpler interface, so it's a little easier to do. And then any contacts that you gain, like through doing something like a Facebook lead ad, for example, are added directly into your Constant Contact account. So that's how you can get started there. So there's about 40 minutes of questions that we answered there for you. I hope you found that valuable. John, if you're still watching, thank you so much, and I appreciate the kudos. Like I mentioned, we'll include a link to the webinar. If you weren't able to join us live, we'll include a link in the description so you can get some more information there. And as always, if you do have questions, ask them here, ask them on Facebook, ask them on Twitter. Feel free to use the hashtag #AskConstantContact, because we'll be on the lookout for those, and whenever we can, we're happy to offer any marketing advice that will help you be more successful with your business. So thanks again for watching, and I hope that was helpful, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.